In November 2017, inside a packed Christie's auction house in New York, something happened that the entire art world is still talking about. A painting sold for $450 million, but it's not a Picasso, not a Monet, and not a Warhol. A painting attributed to Leonardo da Vinci, the same man who painted the Mona Lisa, sold for nearly $500 million in less than 20 minutes. It became the most expensive painting ever sold at auction in the entire history of human civilization. And then, just like that, it disappeared. No museum, no gallery, and no public exhibition. The most expensive painting on Earth simply vanished. And here's where it gets truly strange. Before that auction, this painting was bought for just $1,175 at an estate sale in New Orleans. This is the story of the Salvator Mundi, the most mysterious, the most controversial, and the most expensive painting in the world. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand why some of the greatest art experts alive believe this painting might be the biggest fraud in art history, while others believe it is the last hidden masterpiece of Leonardo da Vinci himself. The story starts not in a glamorous museum, not in a billionaire's vault, but in a dusty estate sale in New Orleans, sometime in the early 2000s. A small group of American art dealers, not famous, not wealthy, just experienced, bought a painting for $1,175. The painting showed a figure, dressed in Renaissance robes, holding a crystal orb in one hand, and raising the other hand in a gesture of blessing. The subject was Jesus Christ, depicted as Salvator Mundi, Latin for Savior of the world. But nobody was particularly excited about it, because at that moment, the painting looked terrible. The paint was cracked, the surface was damaged, the colors were dull and faded. And most importantly, it looked like a copy. In the Renaissance, it was extremely common for master artists to paint a famous composition once, and then have their workshop students paint dozens of copies. Copies were sold to wealthy clients who wanted a version of a famous image but couldn't afford the original. Over the centuries, art historians had identified more than 20 copies of this exact Salvator Mundi composition. So when these dealers bought it, the assumption was simple. This is just another copy. They paid $1,175, took it home, and sent it to a restorer. What happened next? Nobody expected. As the restorer began carefully cleaning the surface, removing centuries of old varnish and overpainting, something started emerging underneath. The brushwork beneath the damage was extraordinary. It wasn't the flat mechanical work of a student copy. It was alive. It had depth, and it had a quality that was almost impossible to describe unless you had spent years studying Renaissance painting. The dealers started paying closer attention. They brought in experts. And slowly, very slowly, a question started forming that nobody dared say out loud. What if this isn't a copy at all? What if somehow this is the real thing? Now, before we go further, you need to understand something about how art authentication works. Because it's not like DNA testing, it's not like a fingerprint match, it's not a clean, definitive science. Authenticating an old master painting, especially one attributed to Leonardo da Vinci, is one of the most complex, most contested, and most political processes in the entire art world. Leonardo da Vinci only left behind around 15 to 20 paintings in his entire lifetime. 15 to 20. The man was a genius, a polymath, an architect, a scientist, an inventor, and yet the number of paintings confirmed as his work can fit on your fingers. Every single time a new Leonardo is proposed, the art world erupts, because the stakes are enormous, both financially and historically. So when the dealers who owned this painting started quietly reaching out to experts, they knew they were stepping into a minefield. The first major expert to examine the painting was David Modestini, one of the most respected painting conservators in the world. Modestini spent years working on the painting, carefully restoring it, layer by layer, and as he worked, he became increasingly convinced that what he was looking at was not a copy. The technique was too sophisticated, too precise, too Leonardo. There was a specific quality to the way the light fell across the face, a technique called sfumato, Leonardo's signature method of blending light and shadow so softly that there are no hard edges, just a gradual, almost imperceptible transition between light and dark. No workshop student painted like this. Was the hand of someone who had mastered light in a way that very few humans in history ever have. Modestini's wife, also an art expert, looked at the painting and started crying. She said, "This is by Leonardo." But the art world needed more than emotion. The painting was taken to the National Gallery in London, where some of the most rigorous Leonardo scholars in the world examined it. They studied it under infrared reflectography, a technique that allows you to see the underdrawing beneath the paint surface. And what they found was astonishing. Beneath the paint, there were pigment changes that Leonardo had made during the painting process. The position of the thumb on the crystal orb had been shifted, the arrangement of the fingers had been adjusted. These kinds of changes, these corrections and second thoughts, are the fingerprints of the original artist thinking through their composition in real time. Copy painters don't make these kinds of changes. They simply copy what they see, but original artists think, they doubt, correct, and refine. The underdrawing also showed a level of complexity and confidence that was entirely consistent with Leonardo's known working methods. In 2011, the National Gallery in London made a decision that sent shockwaves through the entire art world. They included the Salvator Mundi in their major Leonardo da Vinci exhibition, presenting it as a work by Leonardo himself. This was not a small announcement. The National Gallery is one of the most respected institutions on Earth. They don't make these kinds of attributions lightly. Almost overnight, the $1,175 estate sale painting became one of the most valuable objects in human history.